I think that amongst all the other strategies, there's one about believe in the possibility of kindness. And that sounds like a soft skill, but I think that in a world which is aggressive inherently and also aggressive in terms of business, ambition, achievement, that we need to remember that people have kind intentions more often than we let them have in our perceptions of them. So when we believe in the possibility of kindness, it actually opens us up to connections with other people.
Hey, Uncommon Leaders, welcome back. This is the Uncommon Leader Podcast, and I'm your host, John Gallagher. Greg Bennick, welcome to the Uncommon Leader Podcast. It's great to have you on the show today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And I mean that sincerely. It's not just I'm doing great. I'm really doing great. And I'm very happy to be here with you.
Good. Well, Greg, we're getting ready to chat about your book that's going to be coming out real soon. And I'm excited about it. Reclaim the Moment, 7 strategies to build a better now. So I know my listeners are going to find value in the conversation we're going to have today, some of the homework I've done. But I never let my first time guests off the hook real easy. I'm always looking for something else that exists to get the conversation started. And I always use the question of asking them to tell me a story from your childhood that still impacts who you are today as a person or even as a leader.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is a good one because I didn't include this story in the book. I was about 6, maybe 7 years old. I was at a friend's condominium complex in the main hall of the condominium complex. And there was off to the side an arcade. And I went into the arcade by myself. My friend was with his parents or something. And there was pinball machines lined up in order. And I went and was standing in front of a pinball machine as if I was playing. And I was 6 or 7, so I didn't have quarters to put in the pinball machine. But as I was standing there, a group of older kids came in, older boys, teenagers, and I turned and sort of positioned myself in between the pinball machine at which I was standing and the one next to it. So now all of a sudden I'm in between these two machines, and these boys came over and started to play this pinball machine that I'd been miming playing. So now I've got this group of older boys kind of wedging me in between these two pinball machines, and I'm watching the pinball. But at the same time, I kind of want to leave. Like I'm feeling a little awkward. These are much older, taller kids, but I was afraid to say, excuse me, or can I get out, or can I leave? So I didn't say anything. And after 10 minutes, one of the boys looked down at me and realized that I probably had a look of terror on my face. And he said, "Do you want to get out?" And I kind of probably nodded, mm-hmm. And he parted the seas and let me out, as it were. That story, which sounds basic and rudimentary almost, I'm pretty sure impacted my entire life, and is probably why I'm a professional speaker today, because in that moment I could not find my voice. And I've thought about it over the years again and again and again. Why didn't I speak up? Why didn't I just say, "Hey, can I get out?" I didn't want to be embarrassed. I didn't want to look foolish. I didn't want to look silly. I didn't want to sound like I was weak. All of those things still tie into fears people have around public speaking, and they definitely impacted me. So many years later, here I am. I've recovered. I now play pinball from time to time. I'm not afraid of teenagers, and there we go. Life goes on.
It's amazing some of those stories that stick with us and impact us. I love that story. Again, I can imagine the losing your voice and not wanting to say anything, not wanting to be embarrassed, and not wanting to go through that, especially with those big tall 12, 13-year-old kids that were coming
That's
in there
right. I
playing
mean,
pinball. So
they might as well have been 70 years old. To me, they were these adults.
Absolutely. Exactly right. That's amazing, the perspective that we have as well. Well, this is good. So I appreciate the story. And I like how we'll see if it can fit in with the book as well. And maybe it does a little bit with my first question, because as I did my research getting ready to have our conversation today, the first thing that I found in some of the notes was there was a quote said, "Writing this book almost killed me." Now, this is your first book. So what is it about writing this book that almost killed you? Tell me that story.
So readers will find the story in the book, but I'll give an abridged version. But I decided many years ago, in the midst of doing so, made an enormous mistake, that I was going to sell out, as they say. And what I meant was, rather than, and I had not written at the time, rather than write a book that had meaning to me and was valuable, I thought, how could I write something that makes me a lot of money? And I went to a bookstore with my friend in order to find self-help books that I could emulate and literally almost copy in order to write a self-help book, which is not what I'm into. It's not what I like. It's not what I pursue. But I thought this is going to make me money. Well, readers will read this story in detail in the book, but I had a situation happen where a vehicle, an actual vehicle, crashed through the wall of the bookstore, through the self-help section, where I was sitting looking at copies of self-help books to copy or emulate. The full version of this story is actually in the book. And literally being so off course, so off track, so insincere with myself that I thought, I'm going to write a self-help book and make money and sell out my values, led to a truck almost crashing me in the face. I have photos to prove it. So literally writing this book, which has meaning to me and is not me selling out, is the end point of a process that quite literally almost killed me with the truck crashing through the wall of a bookstore. And there is a full version of the story in Reclaim the Moment. But that's the connection.
Well, I so appreciate you sharing that, and not what I would have expected to hear in terms of how that process worked. So
That's
that,
right.
wow, I can't imagine. I mean, being there and observing that and watching that happen.
Yeah.
What an
Yep.
experience that must have been. But it wasn't enough to turn you away from it. So that's a good thing.
No, I mean, what it did was it turned me toward it. And the reason I say that is because I was about to write a book that would not have been sincere, accurate, or meaningful to me. And when I reconnected with, whoa, 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 go readjust your relationship with the universe, then over years, I got connected to things that actually mattered rather than trying to become the next Tony Robbins or any such thing. So yeah.
All right. So let's stick with that a little bit. So as you chose there, as you went there and you chose to write it the way you wanted to, who were you writing it for? And why was kind of now the right time for you to write a book as you went through your career so far?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was approached by Wiley, who asked me if I would write a book with the Build a Better Now theme, because that's been my keynote theme for quite a while. How can we get ourselves back on track when we've been thrown off track by an increasingly complex world, essentially? When the world encroaches upon us, how can we get centered again? And how can that be true for ourselves and for teams? And Wiley approached me with the idea of writing a business trade book. And as I wrote the book, I expanded the vision to include, how do I write a book for people who have been thrown off track? Because I know that focus is a challenge for me. It's a challenge for all of us. And how do we reunite with our teams? And how do we approach one another in proactive ways that truly develop and nurture relationships and creativity? I started thinking about that and thought, you know what? The people I'm writing for, sure, might be in business, but they are human beings in business. So I wrote a book for people who care about getting focused, getting back on track, and getting specific about creative thinking, not from the standpoint of painting pictures, but how do we creatively engage with the world so that we're vibrant in what we're doing and how we're feeling every day. And yes, there's absolutely chapters on leadership and teamwork that one could take to their boss and say, hey, this is a cool, a cool idea, a cool chapter. How does this apply to where we work? But there's also chapters in there about how to best be in a very alienating and overwhelming world.
I love that. Again, the focus for one thing, I mean, in terms of what I've talked about before, is distraction is one of the number one thieves of productivity that exists in today's world. And these, little phones that we carry around with us that we claim to be the number one productivity tool that we have available to us is more of a distraction than anything else. But you use that word focus, and we know that a diluted focus will lead to diluted results, whether it leads to mediocrity, whatever that is. And there are many things that cause that lack of focus. So in your experience over your time doing your speaking, and when you've experienced it, whether it's you or others you've experienced it with, what are some of those big, thieves of focus that you talk about?
Well, I think realistically, I mean, and I don't want to condemn any one of these things, but if we take social media, for example, I don't want to condemn it. I use it all the time. It's how I reach out to people. It's how I know what my brother's doing across the country, that sort of thing. But realistically, the way the algorithms work is to present me with things that I quote unquote like, and then it presents me with more of those things. Well, if you tell me, Greg, I really like pizza, I go, cool, John. And if I throw pizza in front of your face every 5 seconds, you're not going to pay accurate attention to your family members, the things you need to read and focus on today. You're going to be so excited about all the pizza. Well, social media works the same way. It presents us with the things we have said we like. And therefore, in liking them, we get more offers for them. So that's one example. The news is another example in the media.
Mhm.
This is not to condemn media and the news, but it's very easy to get swept up in it. Pick any day of the last year. This particular week we're recording is a perfect example. And we certainly get swept up in wanting to know what's happening in the moment, exactly when it's happening. And we have fear of missing out if we don't. So between media and between social media, and those are just two examples. Already we've created a maelstrom for navigating through being a challenge in terms of keeping our focus on track. I mean, that's aside from just the fact that human beings have a tricky problem. I mean, we are finite creatures with infinite minds. We can imagine possibilities for ourselves.
Mhm.
And at the same time, we have a sense that maybe we're running out of time. That makes us frantic. So when images are presented to us and we say, ooh, I think I want that, then we dive into that thing because we want to have it right here, right now. Well, multiply that times 1,000 times a day, and it's a miracle we get anything done.
Amen. You're exactly right, Greg. I can't stress that enough. I don't want to go back with this, but as you said that, there's something that came to my mind. Like there's the why then of the words that you had, reclaim the moment. So tell me about the title inside of that, because if we eliminate or focus better, then that gives us the opportunity to do this, to reclaim the moment. So tell me about the title.
Sure, absolutely. The idea just being that this moment, as we all know, is the one that matters most, essentially. Sure, we can plan for a future, we can make a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. But unless we're focused and centered in this moment, or at least grounded in this moment, how are we going to actualize the future that we want? Well, I can tell you this. If I wasn't speaking to you, I bet my cell phone, which is by my side and shut off right now, has already in the last 7 minutes pinged with opportunities to go hang out, to eat food, to meet, to do this, to look at this link. Well, I need to reclaim and grab this moment back so that I can focus on you. Cell phone off, focus on you, consideration of the conversation and your graciousness in asking me questions. I need to reclaim this moment so that I can be present and then go off into the world and do whatever I want to do. But without reclaiming this moment, and now this one, and now this one will all
Mm.
be lost to me, essentially.
I love that within relationships, being present, it being so important there. And even, what I've experienced on with some of my clients, and even in my own, frankly, in my own work, if I'm owning it myself, there's a level of that distraction, that lack of focus, that if I just need to focus on one project myself on my own, and I allow those things to hang out there, the little text message beep that pops up and I see it in my screen, or I feel the desk vibrate when it's like, there's just this urge to go over there and pick it up. And frankly, once I address the urge, I lose presence, I lose the focus on the moment, and it's hard to get it back. So I appreciate how you say that. That
Absolutely.
moment is so powerful. So you talk about 7 strategies. I want folks to buy the book, so I don't want you to talk about all 7 of them. There are 1 or 2 though that maybe stand out to you in terms of what are most impactful for you on those strategies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, one of them is keep your eyes on the knife. And what I mean by that is I use a juggling metaphor. Throughout the course of my life, I've interspersed and peppered into my keynote speeches comedy bits and juggling or magic mind reading in order to keep audiences always on their toes. Like, what is this guy gonna do next? So it's idea generation along with those fun moments. Well, I use a visual image and I basically say to the reader, if you were juggling, imagine you're a juggler, you're juggling 2 bean bags and 1 knife. Where's your focus going to be? I hope it's going to be on the knife. So, with that in mind, what is the mission critical task that is your quote unquote knife in the moment? What's the thing that's flying before you that really matters that you keep your focus on? If a beanbag drops, that's okay. If a knife spins out of control, bigger issue. So what is the mission critical task that matters most if it fails, that's right in front of your face right now? So keep your eyes on the knife. Consider that mission critical task. I think that's an important one.
Mm.
Um, I think that amongst all the other strategies, there's one about believe in the possibility of kindness. And that sounds like a soft skill, but I think that in a world which is aggressive inherently and also aggressive in terms of business, ambition, achievement, that we need to remember that people have kind intentions more often than we let them have in our perceptions of them. So when we believe in the possibility of kindness, it actually opens us up to connections with other people. And humans are social creatures. We are not solitary. Even though social media, for example, sets us up as having isolated, solitary personalities online that people can like or dislike as they choose, we are social creatures and truly need one another. So when we believe in the possibility of kindness, it opens us up to possibilities with others
Hmm.
to create, to grow, to develop. And I think that this is true in life, and I think it's true in business. And I've spoken to lots of people about it. And kindness, I think, is going to be an increasingly important theme in the years ahead.
Yes, I agree. Again, when we're recording this, it's a big part of the topic of conversation in terms of understanding. So let
Absolutely.
me go back to keep your eyes on the knife, because I got a chance to see your TEDx presentation as well as some of the other presentations that you do. You mentioned the juggling that you have as a part of your keynote presentation. Tell me how that fun, well, how you get to choose kind of doing juggling for one thing as part of your keynote presentation to talk about focus, but how that has come to frame a little bit of your book, Reclaiming the Moment.
Absolutely. And there's a chapter on focus where I actually offer juggling lessons in the book. And I tell readers, don't skip over this. Like there's lessons here, important lessons on paying attention and self-confidence and be having it be okay if a mistake happens in a moment. I'm also cognizant of, I tell, rocket scientists and brain surgeons, mistakes aren't as okay for them. But for everybody else, mistakes are more okay than we let on oftentimes. So I teach juggling as a mechanism of that. But I've also taught juggling in addition to keynotes in workshop settings. And it's amazing what
Hmm.
happens when people try something new and step into the unknown. And there's a chapter in the book called Leap into the Dark, which is about stepping into the unknown. You put a couple objects in somebody's hands and say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to juggle. And you watch their face go, whoa, 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 no, 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 no way. And then all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, they're at least trying and throwing and
Hmm.
catching. These are little victories, and those little victories throughout our day are going to propel us, excite us, and keep us going. So the reason to have that in the keynotes is because it's an incredible visual metaphor and it's fun. And the way to lead work, the reason to lead workshops with it is because people and groups and organizations get something out of it. Their people, their teams get something out of this visual metaphor of, oh, wow, I'm trying this and it's okay that I look foolish, or it's okay to try something new. There's a lot of lessons to be had amidst that.
When you talk about, Greg, some of the distractions that exist, so let me combine two of those: juggling and a social media distraction. One of the recent juggling phenomenons I've seen on LinkedIn are young teenagers juggling three Rubik's cubes, and as they juggle the Rubik's cubes, they're solving the cube as they juggle it as well. And by the time they're done, all three of them are solved. I'm like, dude, I can't even watch this. There you go. There you get your Rubik's cube. Hey, great.
I've got the Rubik's cube, but I don't solve it while juggling per se. But I have seen those videos. They're very impressive, and it speaks to what I'm talking about here. The
Yeah.
idea that when we focus,
Hmm.
amazing things can happen.
Amazing, amazing things can happen. Absolutely. All right. So let me ask you, because you touched on a little bit with regards to the eyes coming on. Is there a specific story of someone in the crowd that you've taught, or someone that you've coached that's been a memory that's been big for you as you've gone through this journey as well?
Yeah, and I'll word it this way, that rather than there being one, there's always a couple, and I don't mean like two people together, but
Hmm.
rather there's always somebody who hierarchically is more established in an organization. We're talking about if I'm training a corporate or association group, there's always somebody who's hierarchically more established in the organization, and somebody who hierarchically speaking is of less stature. And when I think of hierarchies, I often question them at times because it's important to remember how much we have in common. The point is, what I often find is that the people who are of, let's say, lower stature in an organization than a CEO or CFO often feel incredibly empowered and during a juggling lesson. And the people who are the CEO or CFO learn to laugh at themselves and get a bit of humbleness or humility in a sense, not in a negative sense, but in a positive sense, like, oh, wow, okay, we're all in this together. That's a critical teamwork moment. We're all in this together, because if you've got somebody who is hierarchically more of stature and somebody less so, but they're all on the same team, and then all of a sudden we start to balance out the hierarchy just a touch in terms of how can we capital letters we, achieve more towards the goals of this organization. And this is true for nonprofits as well as it is for corporations as well. But I love seeing people laugh at themselves and then get empowered through that laughter. I think that's really important.
I think it's really cool. Greg, when you coach organizations through this, or you see leaders that are going, what are the ways you get them started? Like, how do you get them started on these 7 steps? What's
Sure.
a good tactical way?
Well, I mean, I think that a really great tactical way is to review what is most important about an organization in terms of a mission statement, in terms of values, in terms of strategies that the organization uses. And again, like take the example of a nonprofit, say, and again, we could talk about any major corporation as well, but realistically, like let's just take a nonprofit who are doing development work somewhere or something like that. Asking them what's most important. Well, it's most important that we get our donations up. Okay, why? Well, because it's most important that we're able to help people effectively. Cool. Now we're on to something. If the goal is to help people more effectively, then how are we doing that in terms of the team structure? How are we doing that in terms of everybody knowing what the mission is? How are we doing that in terms of how we're going to focus and then relate to one another and step into the dark while leap into the dark while keeping our eyes on the proverbial knife? All of these strategies drive forward, but it starts with asking where's the value? Where are your values? Where are the values of the group, the organization, the company, the collective, whatever it might be, that then we can use to frame the rest of the questions about, are we being kind to one another? Are we keeping our eyes on the proverbial knife? Are we thinking and cultivating a revolutionary, a creative mindset so that we think, oh, wow, what if we did it this way? And then we support one another along that mission. And are we engaging one another with laughter as we leap into the dark creatively? All of those things start with asking, what's the reason behind what we do, and what direction do we really want to be going?
Love that. You just took them through the 7 steps too, Greg. They didn't know that yet, but they're going to get it when they read the book as you go forward. So what's a little fun? What's the most outrageous thing that you've either juggled or the feat that you've had? I mean,
okay, so I have a section in the keynote, which I don't do every time, but on request, or if I think it's applicable, where I have the audience suggest an object that they have with them that I then incorporate into the routine, into the juggling moment amidst the greater keynote. And I've had the widest range of things suggested. I mean, I had a group of people in business suits, and I said, I need an object from the audience. And of course, somebody will raise a lipstick, or somebody else will raise a wallet. I had a guy open his jacket. This is at a sit-down brunch, and opened his jacket and pulled out a shovel that was about this long. Your face is perfect. I will be 90 years old someday wondering why he had a shovel in his jacket. So things like that happen. I mean, of course, somebody will say, hey, how about this? And they'll hold up a potted plant or something that they see in the corner of the room. But anything you can imagine has come up. But the shovel was up there. And I tell stories in my book about other examples. But the shovel was up there, and that one's not in the book, actually.
that's so funny.
It's
Greg, you
ridiculous.
went through the book writing didn't kill you. We know this. We heard that story about the truck come through, but now you've also come out with an audio version of the book as well. So how's that been for you? I mean, I've often been told that I have a face for podcasting like this in terms of going on, and I've got a good radio voice, whatever that means. But
Sure.
what was the process of doing the audio version?
Yeah, we just completed it last week in New York City. I flew to New York and we did the audio version, which basically, we're aiming, as with most audiobooks, that you're looking for something around, 8 or 9 hours worth of content. But to get there, it means you sit in a room that is about the size of a closet and you read your entire book to yourself, basically, in a soundproof room. And that takes about 18 hours because, of course, I start off and say, reclaim the moment, 7 strategies to build a better now with Gary Bennick. Wait, that's not my name, Greg Bennick. And then we have to go back and re-record, bit by bit. You get through it, and it's an incredible experience because you really start to learn what it is that you've written about, because you start to get the context as a reader. It's really enriching. So I loved it. And the audiobook, I'm pretty sure, is coming out the same time as the print version. I'm still waiting for confirmation on that, but still there will be a print version, an audiobook, and an e-publication, an ebook, for e-readers and whatnot.
Excellent. So Greg, that good lead right into where do you want them to go to order the book and or learn more about you?
Yeah, I would say if they go to gregbennick.com, which is GregBennick.com, there's a link at the top that says order my book. And it currently goes to the Amazon page specifically for Reclaim the Moment. But then they're on my website, listeners, watchers, readers, you're already on the website. I'd be happy to have you be there and learn more about me. And of course, if people have questions, they can find me, of course, on LinkedIn, on Instagram at Greg Bennick. And then, my website has that link to purchase the book, and pre-orders matter. So I always appreciate whether, people buy it beforehand or after the book is out. It goes a long way.
Absolutely. Click that link. We'll make sure to put the link in the show notes so that folks can get to it easy.
Great.
Greg, I've enjoyed our conversation today. I hope you have as well. I can't believe how fast our time has gone already in terms of conversation. I know you're going to have good success with the book. This is kind of fun, and certainly playing off of that with some of the things you're already doing with your keynotes and the passion that you put into that. I'll finish off with the same question I always have my first time guests as well. And that's I'm going to give you a billboard, and you can put it anywhere you want to, whether it's out there in Seattle where you live or wherever you want to put it. What's the message you're going to put on that billboard, and why do you put that message on there?
Without a doubt, believe in the possibility of kindness. I think that that's going to redirect people, redirect our minds and our work and our sense of self in the direction that we all need. That's why I would put it there. Maybe at the bottom, I'd put my website or, that sort of thing. But believe in the possibility of kindness goes on the billboard without a doubt. That's going to be top of the list for me.
The kindness goes a long way. Greg, it's been a true pleasure having you on the Uncommon Leader podcast. I know the listeners are going to find value in it as well. And I wish you the best in your future.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you and your time and all your great questions.